Hello beer tubers and welcome to yet another brewery showcase with me, Peter, the master of hops. Today checking out Shapes and Objects Beer Co. from Sweden. This is a newer Swedish brewery and I've only had one of their beers last year at MBCC, which was a Imperial Stout or Porter. I think it was a stout with Djungelvrål. Djungelvrål. I can't say it. Djungelvrål. I don't know how you even say it in Swedish, but Djungelvrål. It's a very Danish way of saying it, is salty licorices. And it was pretty good. So the people behind it, it's a collaborative effort between 10 Hands Brewing and Magnus Bjornstjerne. I think that's how you say it. If you're into beer, you probably know Magnus. He's been around for a long time in the industry. He used to co-run the blog Manka Beer. I think it kind of came back now. And he also used to work for Omnipollo. So they've done quite a few collaborations with loads of breweries from around the globe. And yeah, this is going to be the first time we do any of their beers in one video as well as showcase, because I think a lot of you guys haven't heard of these guys. So we got 3 beers to try. And the first one is Common Objects, which is a hazy IPA brewed together with Common Dialect and Recycled Brewing. And I think Recycled is out of Florida, some people from Cycle. And Common Dialect, I'm not sure about. So this is 6.2%, double dry hop with Amarillo, Simcoe. And I think that's it. And they talked about something about bringing Amarillo back or something with this one. So pours a pin bright golden yellow color. White head, looks like modern hazy IPAs. Let's check out the aroma. And also big thanks to Magnus for the beers. He gave them to me, so thanks a ton, dude. Definitely a big Amarillo profile. Lots of orange and sweet citrus. It's very zesty. So actually, I didn't check packaging dates. So this is packaged 2025-04-04. So maybe it was packaged 04-04. This is the best before date. I'd imagine. The 4th of April, I think. But yeah, it's very orangey, very tangerine-y, very citrusy. Simcoe is there with a little bit of a sticky grapefruit vibe too, and also like cooked pineapple. But it smells nice. Let's try it. Cheers. Thanks, Magnus. A drier hazy IPA, which I don't mind at all. I really like that it's not overripe gushing juice. I know it's a collab with Recycled, but it actually reminds me a little bit of some of the old school, maybe not old school, but some of the first hazy IPAs I tried from Cycle. What was it called? Oh, Clack C something? There was an IPA they brought to MBCC quite a few times. I think the first time it was clear beer and then it kind of turned hazy. But yeah, it's very Amarillo focused. Big time orange and orange pith and sweet citrus, tangerine, lots of pithy nuances. A little bit of that cooked pineapple, some sticky resiny vibes too. There's almost a little bit of old school flair to it. I think it's also because Simcoe and Amarillo by now are old school hops. It's not like your crazy modern hazy that just like smack you in the face. Maybe we should try and get some more in here. It's also not dead fresh, you know. Just want to see. Sometimes with these beers, you know, all the good is stuck to the bottom. And that, yeah, look at that. Oh, damn, those are some big ass floaties that came into the glass. Let's see what we're dealing with now. I mean, it looks much more saturated, but wow, there's some big lumps of coagulant there. It smells the same. It bites back a bit more now, for sure. Yeah, I think it's a pretty all right hazy. It's not like super my kind of hazy IPA. I like that it's a little bit drier, so it's not like super gushing sweet. It was 6.2%. So you know, some of these hazy IPAs can be really, really sweet beers. But the hop profile, there's something about it that I'm not too into. I don't know. It doesn't seem like super vibrant or anything. And it's a month and a couple weeks. It's like maybe 6 or 7 weeks. And I wonder if it's, I mean, when you pour all this gunk in, you can see they used a lot of hops. But there's something about it. Like it feels a bit chalky now too. I think I like it more without the sludge. Yeah, it's a decent IPA. I'm not super fired up about it though. but I'm also tired of hazy IPAs, so I think this one will be more my jam. So let's move on to Respect Your Elders. West Coast IPA, or it says here American IPA. I'm guessing they put American IPA also to cater to Untapped, because that was what they categorize anything that's not pretty much hazy. Well, there's a few different types of IPA, but it's never, the West Coast IPA has never been defined on Untapped, which is weird. It's always been American IPA. I think actually also on Rate Beer and stuff like that back in the day. I'd love to see a West Coast IPA category. But this one is 7.2%. It's clearly a tribute to Pliny the Elder. And it is hopped with some really classic hops. So it's 100 plus IBUs, and it's hopped with Simcoe, Amarillo, Centennial, Columbus, and Cascade, which I think is pretty much a similar, if not the same, hop bill as Pliny the Elder. But one thing that's happened with Pliny the Elder over the years, it's changed colors. It does not look like this anymore. Pliny has become much, much, much paler over time, slowly and gradually. Vinny has said that himself as well. Like, he's moved away from the crystal malt because he likes, less of it, if not nothing, in his IPAs. Also because of what we know now about crystal malt and hop flavors. But that being said, a classic West Coast IPA with crystal malt can still be really freaking banging. So 100 IBUs, this is going to be real bitter. But yeah, it's a rust orange colored beer. It looks like the old school West Coast. Slightly clear. There's a touch of haze to it, which is probably because of all the hops in there. Bay's looking at it. Let's check out the aroma. Oh, that's really old school. It actually reminds me a bit of Green Flash West Coast IPA because it has a very rich, toffee, toasty, tea leafy kind of hop, like toasty, malty, caramelly backbone with like tea leafy hops. This is probably what you talk about when you talk about like the oxidation of hops from malt. You get some of that more tea leafy, sticky, resiny nuances. Also lots of kettle hops and whatnot. It reminds me of how it was getting American beer in Europe like 10 years ago. When I was just getting into craft beer, or when I was well into craft beer and just like, oh shit, this is West Coast IPA from Green Flash and it's only 3-4 months old. I think actually at one point we were like, it's only 6 months old. But, times have changed. People are crazy about freshness these days. It smells pretty good. It's very orangey, grapefruity, piney, zesty citrus. This is what people think of, I think, when they think of old school, or they think West Coast IPA, if they've not had the modern stuff going on. Smells good. Let's try it. Cheers. Definitely like this over the hazy. It's a really old school West Coast. Although it's 100 IBUs, it's not scrapingly bitter. I wonder if it's the water profile or if they used extract for bittering, like Flex or something like that. Because I feel like the bitterness is really palatable. But it could also be because it's balanced by a little bit of residual sweetness from the crystal malt. Predominantly grapefruit flavored and piney, resiny, sticky, tree sappy. It reminds me a lot of old school kind of West Coast IPAs. It reminds me a little bit of like something like Sierra Nevada Torpedo and like beers in that vein, which is nice. I think this is dialed in a bit. Well, maybe this was better, fresher as well. I think both beers will, of course, be better, fresher. But jumping back to this now, it seems much more juicy. But yeah, it's good. It's good beer. But I'm also not like super fired up about this one. I think that's more or less because I'm more into the more modern West Coast beers where they're like pin bright and stingy and whatnot. But I definitely prefer this one, I think, over the hazy. Although the hazy grew a bit on me having a sip now. And this one was not a collaboration. But let's move over to the final beer. And this is a collab with a Neon Raptor called Dinosaur Shapes. A fruited sour, as they say, or maybe a pastry sour, containing, they call it a deep cherry chocolate cake inspired sour. So I guess it's like chocolate and cherry kettle sour beer. So pours a nice kind of ruby reddish tone with some orange hues. Not a lot of head because it's a sour beer. Well, let's check out the aroma. Ooh, there is some flavorings in this one. I think they use quite a decent amount of like flavorings in beers from Neon Raptor. I'm getting like almost like chocolate sauce. If you buy like cheap chocolate sauce, Not like in Denmark, the best chocolate sauce you can buy for Sundays and whatnot is Odense chocolate sauce. It smells a bit more cheaper than that. Almost like a bit like cocoa powder too. If you've ever had soft serve ice cream dipped in cocoa powder, there's something that reminds me of that. And I'm getting a little bit of an almondy cherry note underneath. I wonder if it's, so it's this cherry chocolate cake. I wonder if it's like a Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte inspired. Black Forest Gatto. Smells nice though. I mean, it smells like what you'd expect from a beer like this. And this one is 6%. Let's try it. Cheers. And thanks for the beers, Magnus. Tastes like cherry gummy bears. Cherry gummy bears with a soft chocolatey nuance. It tastes less artificial than it smells. There's definitely some flavoring in this one. I can't get over that. Like as soon as I take a sip and I can smell it, I can't get over that like cocoa, maybe soft serve rolled in cocoa powder. I'm totally getting that. Like when I sniff it and also take a sip. It's very straightforward. Not super sour, not super sweet either. Dry. Yeah, very kind of like pastry-like. Yeah, this is all right. It's not a beer for me. Like it's not like it's good for what it is. I've definitely had better pastry beers, like pastry sour beers as well. But I mean, it's pretty decent stuff. I mean, if you love like these kind of fruity gummy candies, silly, fruited sours or pastry sours, I think you really like this. I think you can compare this a little bit to some of the more silly candy sours that they've done at Vault City. Like I did the blueberry bubblegum bottles. It seems similar to something like that because it's a bit of this like cherry bubblegum type or bubblegum and gummy bear kind of flavor. Like I think the beer that's best is definitely the West Coast IPA, but I fucking love West Coast IPAs and it's more of my jam these days. And you also gotta love this reference. This is a very nicely made, subtle reference to Pliny the Elder. Well, I don't know if it's super subtle. If you've ever seen Pliny the Elder, you'll know what this is a reference to. But in terms of a grade, maybe like an 87, 88 on the Respect Your Elder. Let's go by favorites. 86, 87 for Dinosaur shapes and an 85 for Common Objects. I think they're good, but none of them really break 90 for me. It's not like I'm super stoked and like, wow, this is banging beer. Like they're nice beers, they're well made, and it will be really fun to see where Shapes and Objects moves from here and see how they develop their beers in the future. I mean, if you love these kind of beers, I think they for sure are worth a shot and something you should check out. I think you should look on their Instagram and see what they have out and try and get some fresher beers as well. And it's always like with beer, freshness is key. I had these in my fridge now for a couple of weeks only, but they're drinking nicely and they're nice beers. Nothing wrong with them. No off flavors, no nothing. They're just not some beers that get me super fired up compared to other stuff. And that's my honest 2 cents. But thanks a ton for the beers anyhow, Magnus. This was fun to try nonetheless. So if you guys had a chance to try any of these beers from Shapes and Objects or either beer, I actually think the best beer I tried was that licorice one that Magnus poured at MBCC 2 years ago. 2 years ago? Last year. That was pretty tasty. Maybe it was 2 years ago. I'm not entirely sure. But if you guys had either of these, let me know. And as always, comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page, Twitter, and Instagram, and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm going to say cheers in my favorite. And see you guys in another Brewery Showcase video. Cheers.